Oh. Oh, okay. What's the view? You can't. I tried to clean up the trash.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. Chair is a little bit of the brick wall.
Okay.
Alright, make sure I'm in frame and everything. Oh, your video's on there. It's down at the bottom of the countdown, the intro video. And then me, I'm gonna introduce your video. Let's make sure we go. I'm gonna call most of it. Like say that.
This is going to be broadcast live on our Facebook page, right?
Yes.
And we was just asking.
Should be going right now. Yeah, it's live. So it's gonna go to the intro video right. No, and then it comes back to me. Hey everybody, Brett and Miranda here. We are trying something new and fun today. So if you're with us on Facebook, we should be live on our Facebook page right now. This is a whole new trial, fun kind of thing. Not sure how it's going to go. I'm here in Studio 1. We got Miranda in Studio 2, and Aspen is running the whole thing from an iPad. She's our tech extraordinaire this morning. So anyway, bear with us. We're going to try and do some fun things. So one of the things we were going to talk about today is, kind of the world we're living in and how that affects us. And I'm going to tell you right off, for the interactive part, we're going to give you a web address to go to. So with your laptop, your phone, your tablet, whatever you have, I'm going to say, Aspen, go ahead and run up that first. I guess, let me take a look. It is the website, and then we will give you a code. That first code is it's the 17003. That's the overlay you want to put up. Okay, so it tells you the website www.menti.com, and then your first code is 17003. And we're going to have a couple questions that you get to interact with and vote on, and we'll show the results and stuff, and it should be fun. So while you're getting a chance to get that up, we're going to go to our first segment, which is, this is kind of a family affair thing because we're all in the house together. And so Miranda and I are going to talk, and we're going to kind of share some stuff. But Aspen is our object lesson person. And so the first thing we're going to go to is Aspen with her object lesson. Aspen.
Chemistry is the basis of all life. It's everywhere around us. Like in the kitchen, I can take a bunch of different elements, combine them together, and it can make something completely new. Some things are reversible change, and some things are irreversible change. So for example, let's go to the kitchen. So, say we take a can of grape soda, and we stick it in the freezer. We wait a few hours, and when we come back, it's a popsicle. Now, if we left this popsicle out for a little while, it would melt and become the grape soda again, just maybe not as fizzy. And that is called reversible change. But if we take a soft, pillowy, delicious marshmallow and then say a flamethrower, and we whoosh, and it then becomes a soft, ooey, gooey, delicious, charred, crunchy mess. That, however, cannot go back to the soft, pillowy, delicious marshmallow it was before. That's irreversible change.
You scare me. All right, so irreversible change. That was actually an episode we saw in Sid the Science Kid. It's a lot of fun. But irreversible change doesn't happen just in chemistry. It happens in our lives as well. Experiences we live through, we go through, can change and alter ourselves and our world irrevocably so that we can't go back, just like the marshmallow under intense heat was irrevocably changed. Sometimes when we go through intense, heated, on fire kinds of experiences, it changes us and our world. For instance, 9/11. When 9/11 happened, it forever changed the landscape and the way we do things. It changed the world that probably can never go back again to the way it was. Things that happen will change us and our lives and what we're living through right now. This coronavirus and the pandemic, it's changing the way we're doing daily life for sure. And it's very unlike anything most of us have ever lived through. And it's changing the world, and it's changing us, and it's changing our daily lives. And it's not so much, I think, how we act, but how much we react to the things around us. It's how God's way more interested in our reactions than he is our actions. Our reactions kind of show who we are. Reactions kind of define who we are on the inside, how we react to these things. And some people have reacted in lots of different ways, some have, at the beginning anyway, they said, damn the torpedoes, and they went to the beach on spring break anyway. And we've suffered some of the repercussions from that. Many people chose to stay inside and self-quarantine early on. Some didn't. And lots of people ran out and bought toilet paper. All kinds of different reactions. I was telling Aspen the other day, I have a prediction. I'm going to prophesy. I'm going to predict that in 9 months there will be a spike in babies born here in the United States and the world. And then in the year 2033, we will witness the rise of the quarantines. See what I did there? T-E-E-N-S, because they'll be teenagers. It's a quarantine. I will accept by faith everyone watching is uncontrollably laughing at my witty humor. And not making the smirk that Aspen is making right now. So, how we react. The toilet paper thing just blows me away. Again, if you're buying, 400 rolls of toilet paper for a, 3-week quarantine, and that's how much you need, you probably should have been seeing your doctor about another issue beforehand. It's not the first time this has happened, as a matter of fact. Fear gripped the nation once before when it comes to toilet paper. Way back, I think it was in 1977. There was a senator on the Senate floor who made a comment while he was talking about the possibility, it hadn't happened, the possibility of wood pulp being shipped into the United States. And he was listing off different things that would affect, and one was toilet paper, that there might be shortage of toilet paper. Johnny Carson, who, if you're not old enough to know who that is, was the MC of The Tonight Show before Jimmy Fallon, long before Jimmy Fallon. And he picked it up and he put it in his monologue. And we found a clip of that. So, Aspen, play that clip of Johnny Carson.
All the shortages we have, there's a gasoline shortage. You know what else is disappearing from the supermarket shelves? Toilet paper. Ha, you can laugh now. There is an acute shortage of toilet paper in the good old United States. We got to quit writing on it. But I want to tell you, it is serious. I just saw a commercial where, I know it's coming, where Mrs. Olson comes in with a shopping bag, and the housewife says, forget the coffee, just give me the shopping bag. I want to tell you...
So yeah, there was a run on toilet paper back in 1977, much the same way there is now. That commercial, by the way, when he referred to the Folgers coffee commercial woman, that was an old series of commercials where an older woman would always chastise the husband for him complaining about his wife's coffee and the poor quality of his wife's coffee, and that, if they use Folgers, the world would be a better place and they will be happy and there will be children singing in the streets and all will be good. Anyway, what was interesting is that something that hadn't happened, something that never actually ended up happening, because of the comments of one or two people, created this mass fear, and there was this run on toilet paper that was completely unnecessary, all because people reacted out of fear. And I think that's what we're seeing now. We have fear of the unknown. We have intrepidation when we aren't feeling secure in the future, we don't know what's coming next. And it's not just this coronavirus that happens in. When Rand and I were planning this, we wanted to be sure that we didn't just talk about coronavirus. Because lots of people are talking about coronavirus, and that's just what's going through right now. But the principles that guide us through this and other crises are deeper. We've all had experiences where our daily routine in our life has been interrupted. And we go from where we were to a place of the unknown. And one of the ways I've labeled that, I kind of think about it, is I call it the land between. And the land between is this barren, dry desert of where we were and where we'd like to be. And it's the time in our life when we're cruising down the highway of happiness, and all of a sudden we're violently detoured into a place we never expected to be. And I'm going to ask them if you put up my screen here. And the land between, and like I said, the coronavirus is not the only thing, There are other exit signs that show us exiting our highway of happiness to the land between. Maybe you've experienced some of these things. Your job has been eliminated. The doctor comes and says the tumor is malignant. Someone you've cared for and devoted your life to, I don't love you anymore, they say. Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant. And there's been an accident. How fast can you get to the hospital? All of those things are exit signs from our daily lives into the unknown. And they take us to a place we don't want to be. And we are full of fear when we end up in those places. And so what I'm going to ask you right now is and Aspen, throw up that website again with the code. I want you to look at that first question. It's going to ask you, put in one word, what gives you the most fear right now? What gives you the most anxiety? And I want you to vote on I think you can type in 3 different words if you want, and I'm pretty sure you can type in over and over if you like, but go to the website, plug in that code, and share with us what things in one word give you the most fear and anxiety right now. And while you're doing that, we're going to kick it over to Studio 2, where Miranda is waiting. Miranda, take it away.
Yeah, well, back in end of November 2013, Brett lost his job. And we were very fortunate that they agreed to pay out his contract, which would be 7 more months of paychecks, which we were thankful for that. And we figured, hey, 7 months of unemployment, it shouldn't hopefully be too hard to find a job. But at the same time, you cannot predict that kind of future. We packed up all our stuff, put it in a storage, and decided we would spend the next 7 months, or less hopefully, on the road. We would stay with his dad for a bit and his mom for a bit and other relatives who were kind enough or crazy enough to take us in. So we were staying at his dad's. It was February in North Carolina, and one morning, as usual, Brett and his dad were out in the living room and they were talking. They always had these great conversations, Bible topics and who knows what else. But I was out in the kitchen, I was fixing breakfast or, washing the dishes, something like that, right? And I overheard the conversation. And now Brett's dad owned a successful business selling windows and doors, and he'd owned that business for years. And he was trying to convince Brett that he should try to sell windows to make a living, because he was going to have to find something, because he sure wasn't going to be hired doing what he'd done before. Well, I tell you what, I just plain got mad when I heard that. And I'm not usually a confrontational person, particularly with, in-laws that you're going to have to spend a lot more time with, holidays and whatnot, So I would usually not be confrontational, but this time I was so angry. I just marched right on out there. And I said, how dare you say that? How dare you say that? God created Brett to preach and to teach, and he will find him another job doing that. And I did tell him that I appreciated his concern for his kids, and I understood that, because I have young adult children as well, and so I understood that he just wanted to help out. But I was so sure that God was going to provide Brett another job, either preaching or teaching, that I became very frustrated when hearing his dad say that it wasn't going to happen and he needed to plan for something else. Well, fast forward until the end of June, when we were 2 weeks out from our last paycheck, 2 weeks, and it was going to be time to face the future, right, without that monthly paycheck coming in. But Brett received a phone call, an email, and he interviewed. And 2 weeks later, less than that, obviously, but by the end of the month, he was hired as a pastor at church again, and we ended up in Nebraska. So God's plans are always bigger than ours, and the timing is always his. So back to Brett.
Yeah, that was quite the experience we had way back then. As a matter of fact, we find ourselves in the same position once again. So here's a shameless promo. If anybody is looking, I need a job, just so you know. But yeah, that was quite the experience. And Miranda's always been better at that than me. Always. She's always had more faith. She's always had, it's going to be okay. I'm the one that worries and go, oh, what's going to happen, you know. So Miranda is the spiritual giant of the family for sure. But yeah, you know, that was for us what took us into the land between, you know, this place of fear, not knowing what's coming next. And we're going to take a lesson because this is a Bible study, kind of a worship. And so we're going to look at the Bible and something that's in there as an example that maybe we can learn from, the children of Israel. So I don't know, how many of you ever played Egypt to Canaan? I'm going to pull that up here, and then Aspen, you can pull my screen up. So there's a game called Egypt to Canaan. It tended to be one of the great Adventist Sabbath games. And I'm not sure if the voting thing is working. We'll keep looking at that. But another question on there is, and go ahead and throw up the code in the website again, Aspen. It asks you, did you play, you know, Egypt to Canaan? And there's two pictures on there you can choose from. So select what did you do on Sabbath afternoons, you and your family. And Egypt to Canaan is obviously a game based on the children of Israel leaving Egypt and their journey through the wilderness and getting into the promised land. Well, that was their wilderness. That was their land between, from where they had been to where they were going, from the fear and the chaos and the horrible life of a slave to God bringing them to the promised land. And there's things that they went through that we can learn from. Mistakes they made, things they did, that are very similar to the types of journeys we're going through right now. The children of Israel went into the land between because God took them there. He delivered them from slavery right into the wilderness. And when we end up in this land between, we have choices to make. The land between is a place where faith goes to find deeper roots, or it goes to die. It's a place where, depending on our, again, reactions, that we can find fruits of faith, or we grow weeds of bitterness. It all depends on our choices. It all depends on our reactions and what we choose to look at. And we're going to go through a couple of points from the land between. We want to show that there's love in the land between, there's leading in the land between, and there's lessons in the land between. And one of the things we start off with, there was something that Miranda didn't tell you about the story of us losing that job. A little detail that we're going to go back over to Studio 2, and she's going to clue you in on now. Miranda?
Okay, so during our 7-month long road trip in 2013, or actually that would have been 2014, by the time it actually started. So I took along my morning devotional books with me. I hadn't been journeying terribly long, I think a couple of years, and so I didn't have a huge stack of them, but I did have several. And because I would write down my devotional thoughts and various other things, including occasionally dreams that I would have. And I believe that God does still occasionally tell us things in dreams, because I remember when I was a kid, my mom would occasionally have a dream about something, and then when it happened, she would tell us kids about that. And so I grew up with a belief system in that. Well, it was April of 2014, and we were at my sister's, and I got up early one morning, and I looked at my devotional books sitting out there, including my journals and several other devotional books at least, because I tell you what, you cannot take a good road trip without some good books. Several, at least. You can't just have one or maybe two. You got to have at least 3 or 4 or more. That's how I travel. Makes the suitcase a little heavier, but I'm happy that way. So, so I got up that morning and I'm looking at my stack of books and which one should I choose that morning. And one of the devotional books in particular seemed to be saying, hey, pick me, pick me, pick me. And I'm like, oh, really? You? Why? Why you? But pick me, pick me. I'm like, all right, it's you this morning. So I picked it up, I got comfortable in my chair and I'm just flipping through it, and reading various entries that I had made during that time. And that would have been 2012. I had used that devotional journal in 2012. And so all of a sudden I stopped on this one page and I read this very short dream that I'd written down. And the funny thing was about it was that it wasn't even a dream that I had had. It was probably, it was like at that point in time I'd written down Brett's dream. And that was end of November of 2012 that I'd written that down. And when I wrote it down, I thought, this is kind of silly, have no idea what this would mean, but I wrote it down in there anyways, And and promptly forgot, of course. And now here it was almost a year and a half later. And when I opened to that page and I read that dream, I knew instantaneously what it meant. And it was God telling us that Brett would lose his job at some point in time, but we would have plenty of finances. There would be no financial hardship over it. And that was exactly what was happening. And so, anyways, I looked at the date, and the date of that dream was the end of November of 2012. And I thought, Brett lost his job the end of November 2013. And so I wondered if those two dates just so happened to coincide. Well, I looked it up, and it was to the day that he had been told he would no longer have a job there. To the very day, 1 year before he had had that dream. And so God gives us these little heads up along the way sometimes. And that was certainly, in retrospect, I had no idea what it meant before. And it was a year and a half later after that had happened that God pops that up on my radar again. And it really just, by that point in time, we were into April of unemployment. And, we had gone through a couple of no's at least already when Brett had applied for jobs. And so that was certainly a huge boost to my faith and an increase in my faith because God decided to do that in his wisdom at that time. And so this land in between is a time for us to lean on God's wisdom and to allow him to gift us with more faith. We cannot scrounge up more faith on our own if we just try harder. No, it is a gift that he gives to us when we need it. So back to you, Brett.
All right. Yeah, Miranda's the dreamer in our family. I have dreams, but I usually walk it up to I had RC and Snickers too late at night, and that's what I dream. So again, Miranda's the giant of faith in our family. She guides me. She tells me which way to go. But yeah, so the reason I found that really crucial, especially when she told me about it, is it reminded me of this. So real quick, Aspen, kick it over to my screen. Here's some of the things you guys shared about what gives you the most anxiety, fear. We have health, a location to move to. I certainly relate to that. Purchasing a place to, I'm going to assume, live. Moving again. Yeah, we relate to that one. Technology, teaching for everybody who is, having to go online with classes and stuff. I totally get that. So, again, I wanted to go back to what Miranda said. God gave her me a dream. We said, you're going to be okay. That's exactly what God did with the children of Israel. So again, we're looking at the journey where we're at today in this wilderness of the unknown, this land between that we can have fear in because we don't know what's coming next. And compared to the children of Israel. So the children of Israel are delivered, they're taken right into the desert. And you can often feel like, where is God? God has left me. Where's God in all of this wilderness? And really cool Before the children of Israel ever actually went into Egypt, God told them, gave them information that that was going to happen. He didn't leave them to wonder. So you see here in Exodus 15, as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, "Know for certain." Now that's pretty cool. God says, "Know for certain." It's not just, I'm God, and if I say it, it's going to happen. He puts on top of that, "know for absolutely certain" here, that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated there. And he doesn't leave there. He gives them the finish line. He tells them the end. "But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions." So God told them what was going to happen. He didn't leave them wondering. And so he knew they were going to be in this horrible place, and he wanted to show, I have not forgotten about you. I love you, and I know what you're going through. Because later, here in Exodus 3:7, the Lord says, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering." And so, he says, guys, this is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I'm telling you before it happens so you'll know that I haven't left you. And then in the midst of it, he says, I've seen their suffering, and I want to act. I want to do something. Now, that means, well, why didn't you hurry up and do something? Because God's timing is most often not our timing. My father had a great saying I used to love to quote, "God is rarely early, but he's never late." And God will show up in his time, at the right time. And that's what he did to the children of Israel. Imagine, and again, whatever you think and feel and experience, in your spiritual life, always go back to this truth. God is love. And if it doesn't line up with that, it probably isn't true. And so look at the relationship with God and the children of Israel and God and us. Those were his kids. We are his kids. How much harder, for those of you who are parents, how much harder is it to not do something for your child that you desperately want to do, but you have to wait or let them go through it themselves or wait to the right time to act? So if you're a parent, you probably know what that feels like. And on a very, very superficial level, I don't know if you could see this earlier. This, believe it or not, is a rocket. I'm into rocketry, love building rockets. When I was 13, I was rocket boy. I loved to do it and all the time. And when Aspen turned 12, we decided to try model rocketry together. And so we've been building rockets together. And some of you know this. And now this is a skill level 5 rocket apparently, and it's got its challenges to build. But you start with a skill level 1. It's very basic and simple. And when Aspen was starting out, she had some challenges. The first rocket she ever built, you're learning along the way, right? Now, here I was, all this experience building skill level 5s, and I was watching her, and she was trying to do one of the simple parts, put the engine mount together. And all I wanted to do was take it and say, oh, let me do that for you. Let me show you how that's done. And it's really hard to just stand there and watch and let it go. Especially, and I think if you're interested, we have videos on our YouTube channel of building rockets. You see, this is a red and white. It's all decorated the way it probably would look in real life, and it's got real manly colors, right? So whenever Aspen was building a rocket, and we got to, so what color do you want to paint it? Me expecting red, black, white. We ended up with pink and blue. And rockets, pink and blue rockets definitely make a statement. And again, that was something else. I let it go, let her express herself, her creativity. Again, on a very superficial level, but the principle is the same. It's so much harder for a parent not to step in and save their kid than it is to let happen what they know is the best thing for their kid. And that's what's going on here with God and the children of Israel. And he wanted them to know, I am with you the whole way. I told you before this was going to happen, it was going to happen. in that same prophecy, I told you, I'm going to rescue you, and you're going to come out way better than you were before, and I'm going to take you to the promised land. Know that I am God. And again, know for certain this will happen. Guys, know for certain this wilderness will pass as well. Know for certain that God knew all this was going to take place, and he was going to lead us into these different wildernesses that we find ourselves in, different places in our life. And he promises to never leave or forsake us. He promises to see us through to the end. And I was reading online the other day about people talking different things about their reactions to what's going on. And one was, if God was really God, why doesn't he just, cure the virus? In grief counseling, they'll tell you that your goal and object is not to take away the grief. Your goal and object is not to rescue someone from the pain, the emotions, the grief of the loss. The best thing you can do is walk through it with them. That is far better than trying to remove it from them or remove them from the grief. We feel so much more peace, so much more joy, maybe not happiness, but joy, when someone goes through our wilderness with us, when someone walks with us through the land between. That means far more than getting out. And that's something I want to throw out there. The land between, in this wilderness we sometimes find ourselves in, sometimes that's exactly where God wants us to be, and that he led us there. I want you to imagine, go back to the Bible and look at some of the people. We have Moses and Elijah and Jeremiah. There was Paul. There was Jesus himself. All these people, God specifically led into the wilderness. He led Moses into the wilderness to learn how to let go of his past and become a new person. He led Paul in the wilderness to learn. After Paul's Damascus Road experience, he went straight away and spent years relearning the gospel. He took Elijah into the wilderness to learn to lean on God. He took Jeremiah into the wilderness to lament. And he took his own son Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted. Sometimes the wilderness, sometimes the land between is exactly where God wants us to be and needs us to be, because there's something there for us to learn. Again, are we going to react where our faith finds deeper roots, or do we just let the weeds of bitterness grow rampant? These people were led. And we're going to kick it back over to Miranda, and she's going to talk about lessons, things to learn, reactions people have in the land between. Miranda.
Okay, well, first of all, you can't believe everything Brett says about Miranda being the paragon of faith or whatever, because clearly we have not, that has not been perfected in our characters yet, because we're once again in the desert of unemployment, as Brett has said. So, when we find ourselves separated from our previous life, however that may have happened, we often say, oh, why is God punishing me? Or what have I done wrong? Or, we'll complain like the Israelites complained. Or, if we see someone else going through a desert, we go, well, they got what they deserved, didn't they? But you know what? The desert is not a place for us to whine and complain, because clearly we've read how unsuccessful that approach was for the Israelites. It didn't work out very well at all. It did not increase their faith when they just constantly looked to their lack. The desert is a time and a place to learn that God is the one who gives us everything that we need. It does not behoove us well at all to think, I need this, I need that, I want, and then we're out there trying to get it and do it for ourselves. And yeah, there's you need toilet paper. That's well, all right, never mind. But anyways, there are things, yes, that we go out and we live life, taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other. But do we utterly believe that God is the one who gives us everything that we need, and we don't need to get all wound up and tense and depressed or anxious about anything, because He is a source of all peace, no matter our circumstances. And so we can thank God and praise Him that He gives us peace. And all we have to do is ask. He is more than willing to give it to us, and I know that from personal experience. So and if He doesn't give it to you the first time you ask, I'm telling you to just keep on asking, and He hears us, and He gives us what we need when we need it in His wisdom and His good timing. Brett?
So I want to wrap up here, because I didn't mean to go all day here, but I want to wrap up here. God met the children of Israel where they were, and He knew that they needed a lot of concrete, solid evidence that He was there after being slaves for 400 years, and He gave them those things, like He was the, pillar, the cloud during the day and the pillar of fire at night. He gave them concrete, tangible evidence. I am here, because they needed that because of the place they were in. They had what's kind of known as the heart of a slave. In World War II, after the Jews were liberated from the concentration camps, they would take them, and of course they would clothe them, they would feed them, and they had these places they would take them so they could have a place to sleep and be. And what they found was that even after they were rescued, the Jews who had been in the concentration camps would hide their food. They continued doing the things, once they were rescued, the things that they had done in the camps. They didn't believe there was going to be enough food. Even though they could see the stocks of supplies that was there, they continued to hide and hoard food because of fear. That's kind of what happens. 400 years and a long experience as you live as a slave, they had what was called the heart of a slave. And what that meant was they didn't trust anyone. And they had so little, they clung to what they did have so they wouldn't lose it, and clung to it tightly. They would look out after just themselves. And I want to say that that kind of thing happens to all of us to some degree when we walk into these wildernesses and we react with fear. Fear gives you about three options for responding: flight, fight, or freeze. And usually our responses to fear outside of Kodiak bear attacks are not good. Reacting out of fear usually leaves us in a worse place. And sometimes we let these experiences transform our hearts into hearts of a slave. We try to cling to what little we do have. We don't trust. We act and react out of fear. And God had to teach them over and over, because the lessons, if you'll read your story, you should do this today, Sabbath afternoon, great activity. After you're done playing Egypt to Canaan, read the Exodus and the story of the children of Israel and see where God provides water and food for them over and over again, trying to teach them, I am here. You can trust me. I am going to take care of you. So, kind of closing off here, I want you to vote, and I posted the direct link on the Facebook. If you're on Facebook, watch this. There's a direct link to the Facebook on our last one. It's what gives you comfort, hope, or peace right now. If you haven't voted, take a second and go over to that website and vote and just give us one-word answers of what gives you the most peace, joy, comfort in this time right now. And we want to give you something practical to do. So Miranda's going to come in because this is really more her idea. Because in our house, you can believe everything I say. And, yeah. Look, she's here. Yay, all the way from Studio 2. Miranda came up with this idea. It's called SALT, Seeking a Living Truth. And you're going to see more about it from us here in a little bit. We have a website and stuff we're going to launch and everything. But the idea was to share stories from our own lives and give absolute, fundamental, practical ways to live the gospel every single day. And so in this land between, this time of wilderness, instead of reacting in fear, instead of letting fear or anger or whatever guide us and how we react to things, I want to say let's do this instead. Let's take some advice from Jesus. Now, Jesus said in Matthew, and I believe I have this here. Go ahead and throw this up on the screen, Aspen. So Jesus said in Matthew 6, "Do not worry, saying, 'What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear?' For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Therefore I tell you, do not run to Walmart and buy out all the toilet paper, for God knows your needs." That was Revised Standard Brett, by the way. "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." So Jesus is sitting there saying these words to us. Don't worry about these things. God knows you need them. I have an idea that if Jesus was here today and he was going to give us this same message, because you remember Jesus was all about delivering messages in ways that we would remember, parables that would stick with us. I think maybe he would give us this same message, maybe that looks something like this.
Look, now it's like this, little britches. All you gotta do is look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities are Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be found out my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. When you look under the rocks and plants and take a glance at the fancy ants, then maybe try a few.
You eat ants?
You better believe it. And you're gonna love the way they tickle. Mowgli, look out! The bare necessities of life will come to you.
But when?
They'll come to you. Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Now when you pick a pawpaw or a prickly pear,
Ow!
and you prick a raw paw, well, next time, beware. Don't pick the prickly pear by the paw. When you pick a pear, try to use the claw. But you don't need to use the claw when you pick a pear of the big pawpaw. Have I given you a clue?
Golly, thanks, Baloo.
Pawpaw. Of all the silly gibberish. Come on, Baggy, get with the beat. The bare necessities of life will come to you.
They'll come to me.
They'll come to you. Oh, man, this is really living. So just try and relax. Yeah, cool it. Fall apart in my backyard. 'Cause let me tell you something, little britches. If you act like that bee acts, you're working too hard. And don't spend your time looking around for something you want that can't be found. When you find out you can live without it and go along not thinking about it, I'll tell you something true. The bare necessities of life will come to you.
Yeah, I give up. Well, I hope his luck holds out.
Mowgli, how about you sing? Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife.
Yeah, man.
I mean the bare necessities. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, with just the bare necessities of life.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so don't dismiss that right off just because it's a Disney song. There's a lot of good advice, a lot of good ideas in that song. Look for the bare necessities. Jesus didn't promise us, that we would, have mansions on this earth. He did promise we'd have a meal. He promised that we would have what we needed. And one of the things that the song also talks about is, don't look around for things that can't be found when you know that you can live without it and go on without thinking about it. And how much stuff do we have in our lives that we burden ourselves down with that we really don't need? That really, if we let it go, life would be simpler and better. We're going to leave part off with the last question was, in one word, what gives you comfort, hope, or peace right now? And Aspen, throw that up on the screen. Here's some of the answers we got. Promises, which are great. Bible promises are awesome. Jesus, friends, music, dancing, yes. Family, kitty. I guess cats can give you comfort. But look, there's a dog as well. Teachers, parents, faith, worship, all these things. So awesome. Those are awesome things to hang on to during this time. And one of the reasons I wanted to do like the word cloud stuff was one of the things that really helps us, back to walking through the wilderness together, is when we share with each other, these are the things that give me fear, because probably what might give you fear and anxiety, I have some of the same things. And when you verbalize it, it takes away the power of it. When we share it, we know we're not alone in it. The fears become less and less, especially when we share about what gives us hope, what gives us joy, what gives us peace. Did you know that moving your focus from fear and anxiety to focusing on things that are good, things that give you peace, and things that you can be grateful for, it changes the chemistry in your brain. Focusing away from fear and onto gratitude actually changes your chemical makeup and gives us what we experience as joy. Not really so much happiness, joy, which is far deeper than happiness. So, that's our thing for today. A little bit longer than I thought, but we'll see how it goes. We just tried this for fun, just to spend some time with the family and friends, and thought it would be fun, since we're all sitting at home anyway. However, I am a man of my word, and I promised you a singing aardvark. So, to send you off into the rest of the Sabbath day with a little bit of fun and lighthearted humor, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, and here's Binky, the singing aardvark.
A bravo figura, brava bravissima, a brava figura, brava bravissima, fortunatissima, 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 no mancherà. Fortunatissima, 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 no mancherà.